Hey, everybody. I am David Bloom. I am a journalist and podcast host, producer, write for places like Next TV and Forbes and TV Rev, and I do a weekly column on the state of streaming media and influencers for Tube Filter. And I am delighted to host this conversation with three august personages from Scopely, a big mobile game company, Viacom CBS, and Hasbro, and talk about a little bit about mobile gaming as the future of entertainment, or the next frontier of entertainment. It's funny to call it the next frontier because Newzoo and other analysts suggest that mobile gaming is a business roughly around 80 billion in revenues this past year globally. That makes it, I think the way to think about it is double either the music business globally or the movie business before back when we still had a movie business before the pandemic. So it's honking big. It's a way that a lot of people are entertaining themselves. It's hardly a frontier. It's sort of like a very well-established country. But to start, Veronica, why don't you tell us real quickly about what you do for Viacom CBS?
Sure, thanks, David. And I'm so thrilled to be part of this today. I oversee our global franchise planning team across the Viacom CBS consumer products organization. So I handle the global strategy to optimize the licensing of our IP and to make sure that we have a roadmap for the brands that we represent today, but also making sure that our brands are evolving along with our fandom as we go forward, and that we build an approach to do that effectively in key markets around the world and in the right categories for the right brands. As you mentioned, that includes Nick and MTV and CBS and the various channel partners across the organization, BET, et cetera. I came to this role from 20 years being in the licensing industry at a variety of media companies, both in the kids space like Sesame Workshop and Hit Entertainment, and in the more adult-driven space like CBS Entertainment, where I was for 15 years, and then joined the joint organization via the integration last year. So IP is pretty prime to everything that we're involved in every day across our portfolio.
So you're the queen of IP for.
I like to think so. I don't know.
Yes.
I haven't been crowned, but we have a lot.
Well, it turns out that Mike Delayed has a throne in his background, so you can get the crown and borrow his throne, and you're going to be rolling. Mike, you work for Scopely. Tell me real quickly a little bit about your background and how you got to that august position where you even have a throne alone.
Yeah, thanks again, David. So yeah, Mike Delat, I run kind of strategic partnerships for Scopely. I joined the company back in June of 2020 during the pandemic, which is a very odd time to join any company for that matter. I kind of responsible for all the IP licensing partnerships, platform distribution partnerships, and developer kind of ecosystem that we manage here at the company. Been in mobile for about 20 years and been in games for about 16 years. So long time video game guy, been in mobile games most of my career, and glad to be here today.
Yeah. And finally, Richard, last but not least, he's going to give us a clinic, Mr. Cleveland. Tell us a little bit about your background at Hasbro and beyond.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm Richard Cleveland. I manage our licensed digital gaming business at Hasbro. I think I just celebrated my 20th year at Hasbro, believe it or not. Started my career actually early days in advertising, and then found my way to what was then Parker Brothers, just before Parker was acquired by Hasbro. So I've worked on the analog games business side and the digital games business side for the past 10 years. So I manage the relationships that we have with licensed partners across all gaming platforms. Scopely is an important partner of ours with Scrabble and Yahtzee with Buddies. Also work with partners on developing Transformers, My Little Pony, Monopoly. We have a pretty vast library of well-known toy and game brands, and we activate those across mobile, console, PC, online, every platform.
Great. So you are, if Veronica is the queen of IP at Viacom CBS. You are the king of IP over there at Hasbro. And Mike gets to figure out how to make you guys happy on a daily basis, I'm guessing, and create compelling titles that make everybody oodles and oodles of cash, I think is the way it's supposed to work, right? So Veronica, real quickly, how do you go about figuring out, you've got a nice swath of things that could be IP for a game, but how do you go about creating something like that? And what's that process back and forth with somebody like Mike?
Yeah, no, the franchise management and planning is pretty crucial for everything that we do. Star Trek is a great example of an IP that I've personally had the opportunity to lead and work on for over a decade from the CBS side, and now with the joint Viacom CBS side. Star Trek has been a cornerstone brand as that has grown and is going to continue to be incredibly important for the organization. And when we look at a lot of the multi-generational IP that we have, again, Star Trek, a great example. We have SpongeBob, another really great example of that. Avatar, so many brands that have gamification elements that you can latch onto for different consumers and different kinds of game mechanics. And we've had this incredible opportunity to have a partnership with Scopely that's proven that taking a fantastic game mechanic with a world's known IP, really coming to the essence of what's in the DNA of a brand and creating an experience that fans have been clamoring to do for decades.
When people think about licensed games, I think they're probably more likely to think about Yahtzee with friends or something like that, right, Richard?
Yahtzee with buddies is what I hope they think.
Yahtzee with buddies, okay. Yahtzee with buddies, but
Correct.
a little bit simpler, more classic, casual game thing. But that's the Star Trek title that you talked about, Veronica, is a very sophisticated, very rich title that has a lot going on about interacting with different species, different parts of the galaxy, and
yeah, no, I mean, the great thing about the game is it is expansive. So it started in the Star Trek movie universe, and as you said, we really needed technology to catch up with what fans wanted to do, and we needed the gaming expertise that Scopely had. But you can have a simplified gameplay if you're a user that wants that experience, and then there's a huge amount of depth of content. So there's this whole life of its own that it's been able to take on because the gamers that play and are true fan users have created a whole community feel. And this is a passionate audience, like 80% of them come in and play the game every day, and they're coming back 7 times a day. So we've created something that you can take it in bite-sized chunks if you want to, or you can build out the whole universe. And once we saw that there was an appetite for it, we really rallied together in this, again, like with the Scopely team, to make sure that we're expanding into the new content that's on CBS All Access, Discovery, and more, and then doing some fan service, some really fun promo events like Kobayashi Maru. If you're a Star Trek fan, it's the unwinnable task that's kind of at the heart of Kirk and Starfleet, and it has played a role in so much content, but you've never been able to experience it yourself as a fan before. It was always in the lore, and it was never something that was immersive. And now you can go back in and play it and see, can you beat the unwinnable kind of experience? And that's something that Scopely really did for fan service, just in promotion of the game.
So you guys started out with a more circumscribed universe, and then as Stephen Hawking says, the universe is expanding. Once you caught on and you connected with what one would anticipate was a pretty hardcore audience. Mike, what were the signals? What were the things that said, oh, we need to take this on up to the next level? We need to start bolting on some more stuff. What took a game like that, where you had to have some serious resources on the front end and a lot of back and forth with Veronica to make sure you're taking care of that very ardent fan base? What was the trigger that says, hey, we should go up? This thing's got legs, or more dilithium crystals than we thought it had?
Yeah, I mean, we constantly talk to our players and learn from them and listen to like their feedback of what in the experience do they want to see more of. You know, like expanding to the additional kind of Star Trek kind of timelines that we did recently was like a kind of, feedback that they've been asking for quite some time, that we said, hey, let's go do that. Let's go work with Viacom CBS to find out if we can obtain those rights so we can actually expand this game and give players what they want to have in a product, right? So that's just part of all the things we do with all of our top product, is continue to listen to consumer feedback, continue to evolve the game, evolve the experience, and let them live out that fantasy that they're kind of seeking in a game like Star Trek.
Well, now, Richard, for you, it's a very different sort of game experience. The games that you oversee are Parker Brothers. That brand alone has been around since what, the 30s, maybe? I think.
Yeah, something like that, I think, Mike. But I mean, yeah, just sort of building what Veronica and Mike were saying, fans of, brands like Scrabble, Monopoly, Yahtzee. I mean, those are 50, 60-year-old brands. People grew up with them. They're
older than that. Yeah, they're older than just about everybody's alive, right?
Yeah,
at this
they're
point.
Multi-generational. So, there's a passionate fan base for the game of Scrabble,
right,
as for Star Trek.
Hardcore. Those mechanics that they start with must make it easier to make the basic game, but it's not the thing that keeps a mobile title lively when it's based on a simpler, well-known mechanic, right? You've got to do more. You've got to have a social component, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? And Mike, I'd like to hear from you about how you build that in, because I know that's also part of the Star Trek stuff. But I mean, that social component, I don't think gets enough love and attention when we talk about mobile games. So start with how you do that in a simpler classic title like what you work with, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, because these are brands that people grow up with, they, people want that core experience. And so the first challenge when we try to, people play differently, correct, obviously, in the digital world than they play in the analog world. So what's really important is we got to deliver to them the classic experience that they know, and then find ways, as you're right, you have to find ways to keep players engaged and keep them coming back. So in the case of a game like Scrabble, we deliver the classic gameplay, but then we add different ways to play with your friends, ways to get, create matches with people. People get ranked and they get to get matched up against people with similar rankings, that type of thing. So it's the social element is important. The other important thing is, like I said, delivering what people expect from the class experience, and then finding ways to sort of evolve that experience, to get them to continue to come back, to sort of, we expand the world of Scrabble in a way similar to what Veronica and Mike are talking about, the way they they expand the world for Star Trek. So that's an important part of what we do, especially with well-known Hasbro brands.
So expanding the world, does that mean that you add Cyrillic alphabets? Or I mean, what's an expansion? Give me an example of how you expand a really well-known title that works for millions and millions of fans.
Well, I think, look at things like in games like Scrabble, it's turn-based, right? So you've got to take a turn, then I got to wait for, then you got to wait for me to take a turn. So in the Scrabble game, we have lots of other little sort of mini games and things that you can do, while you're waiting for somebody to take a turn. In games like Yahtzee with buddies, which is, fairly well-known, but fairly simple game, rolling dice and everything like that. Tournaments, being able to play in tournaments and rank up, get unlocked so you can customize your experience. Playing with friends and family, those types of things are all the things that make people feel like they've got to, you want in mobile gaming, obviously, people have got to come back multiple times a day to really make a game successful. So you got to give them a reason. So
that's really crucial, though, I think, because we certainly heard that about the Star Trek thing. So how do you get them coming back multiple times a day for Yahtzee?
Yeah, I think I can help answer that. Rich, do you want to take it, or do you want me to?
So, Mike, let's hear from you real quick. And
yeah, so this overall, look at a turn-based game like Yahtzee or Scrabble, you get notifications when another player takes their turn. So it's easy to get that notification and say, oh, Rich took his turn. Now I'm going to hop in and play at this moment. Or to his point, there's always ongoing other events, tournaments, mini games. So there's a lot to do kind of day in and day out in both Yahtzee and Scrabble. And we've even added elements like different kinds of dice you can get in Yahtzee that, oh, I want to obtain those cool dice because I saw the other player had them, or the same with the board pieces in Scrabble. There's collectible kind of elements to these games that really drive that engagement and retention and stickiness of playing with your friends and family on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Fortnites of the world have had no problem making a lot of money off the skins and other digital merchandise that they create, the custom merchandise that people will pay for while not paying for the game itself. But this sort of makes me, I didn't realize that it's not that bang, 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 like you would do if you were sitting in front of each other in, say, Yahtzee.
You know, people that are playing, for example, Scrabble, people have multiple games going on. You know, you've got your friends and family, maybe through Facebook Connect. So
Like the Queen's Gambit, she's playing the whole.
yeah, I
row.
mean,
So
I
it's
might
like
have 5 or 6 games going at any particular time. So, you know, because it gets sort of an expansive network of either friends and family I might be playing with. I might be playing competitively with somebody else. So, yeah, that's one of the things that keeps in Scrabble that keeps you coming back because
yeah.
well, yeah, it's for some people, you know, it's a really social thing you'll see in games like, you know, Yahtzee has like a family mode. So you can pick your specific group that you want to play with.
Yeah, and that's really more for multiplayer. And then multiplayer is actually what the Star Trek thing is about. But Veronica, I wanted to not lose track because, as you mentioned, I have to confess being slightly dismayed to hear that SpongeBob is now a multi-generational property, but he certainly is. He's been
20
around
plus years, yeah.
20 plus years. But it's a little dismaying because I remember when my little darling children, who are now 28 and 29, were watching it on Nickelodeon. In terms of these other titles, somewhere between a classic that Rich might have on his shelf of classic board games and a very complex title like Star Trek with decades of canon and very ardent fans, somewhere in between sits SpongeBob and other stuff. And what kind of titles are you doing and who are you trying to reach for those kinds of games?
Yeah, I think it's important, that distinction that you made. I mean, I think the appeal for the Star Trek fan is in some ways the same appeal that you get for a SpongeBob fan, which now more than ever, like mobile gaming, creating these experiences that can be multiplayer or that you can share experiences, having things that are truly multi-platform are key. So you just figure out the core of the DNA and the brand, and then you end up creating game mechanics around it. You know, we find that content licensing, just like many licensors in the space, doing a game is a really great connected point of SpongeBob now 20 years plus. Like, we're actually launching a new spin-off show on Paramount Plus, and we have another spin-off coming, and 20 years in, we have more content happening now on SpongeBob than we have before. Just like we have on Star Trek, we have more concurrent production on Star Trek happening today than we've ever had in the 55 years of history. So creating gameplay that kind of works within that space is incredibly helpful. We released kind of a rehydrated version of our SpongeBob game, which is
it was a little dry before. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it needed a little bit rehydrating. You know, he's a sponge, 20 years, he needed something else.
Yeah.
But it was a game that
exactly.
It came out in 2003. We re-released it last year. And again, we just saw tremendous fan response. The fact that we're creating new game experiences, we're refining experiences the fans loved across the board. You know, something, again, we do on the Trek side and we do on the kids side as well, not just for the adult player, but just finding what the core is and relating to, as if you could put yourself in the world, what would your experience be, has proven critical for us. So on Star Trek, you don't want to necessarily be Kirk. You want to be able to interact with the characters that you love, or, you know, with Michael Burnham or whoever. You want to have the connectivity and feel like you're in it. And that's been kind of our secret sauce.
So the key though is don't wear a red shirt. Is that right? No red shirts.
It's definitely a danger zone if you do.
It's like, yeah, you want to hang out with Captain Kirk, you're going to wear a red shirt. Well, that's going to be a short game. I'm just going to predict. So that being said, you sort of touched on a thing that I think is interesting, which is the new opportunities for mobile games on new platforms. Let's start with, there's lots of rumbles going on about Apple coming out with an AR thing. Oculus Quest 2 and the VR space has been extremely successful. It was one of the hottest platforms in the this last holiday season. But AR, augmented reality, seems to be really powerful if you've got a good phone, and it turns out a lot of people do, as you guys know. What's the future of mobile gaming look like in an augmented reality world? Mike, let's start with you.
That's a good question. I mean, I think about AR, it's obviously Apple's leveraged it heavily. Google's done it with AR Core, and more players are wanting new, unique ways to kind of engage with the content. And from our standpoint, we're going to continue to kind of look at AR as a potential new platform at some point. For now, we're still going to continue to focus on kind of our core kind of gaming segments of mobile games and moving to other new platforms. But AR is
traditional ones like console or PC or whatever.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the kind of traditional kind of platforms, if you will. They still need to solve some elements with AR in general of how do you get away from the awkwardness. If you're on a bus, you don't want to be holding your phone around like this, looking kind of goofy or whatever, right? So
yeah, that hasn't stopped lots of people on buses for a long time. But yes, point taken.
But yeah, it's definitely something we're keeping a close eye on.
Okay, so it's out there. Both Richard and Veronica, is that something like in your out year planning thinking that you're saying, okay, maybe an AR thing down the road might make sense? Is that something that's back there? I mean, I'm just thinking about like digital game boards that are created in a physical space, or what look like an actual physical space for Yahtzee or with all the cool dice. I mean, that could be kind of visually striking, for instance. Richard, what do you guys think about that? Rich, let's start with you.
Yeah, listen, I think, AR, VR, I mean, they're really cool technologies. I think, you've got to have a great way, the technology has to have a great application for a game, right? And make the game fun.
It has to add to it, not just be a gimmick.
Yeah,
right?
cool. Like you can see a floating, character or something like that that's not really there on your phone. But I mean, a great example is, Pokemon Go with AR. I mean, the whole idea behind Pokemon Go is, you got to catch them all. And so
yeah, they started out really lucky in 1997 or whatever, with something that turns out was perfect for an augmented reality world, and explained that to a whole bunch of people who had no idea what AR was, right?
Yeah. And so, the game that they have now, it very much reinforces what the consumer experience, what the consumer wants from the brand. So, I think there probably Hasbro brands where, consumers want that type of AR experience. And yeah, we continue to look at those types of things. Same with VR, I think those are the types of experiences. With those technologies, you really need a fun application. And if it is a way that it can bring a brand experience to life, it's something that there would be probably some great opportunities for some of our brands in that space.
Cool. Veronica, I'm just thinking Under the Sea with SpongeBob might actually be somewhat compelling, but what do I know?
Yeah, I think the idea, definitely VR. I mean, we've already tipped at least a toe in the water in the VR space. Again, more on the Star Trek side, but it's something that we're looking across brands. Also, we've been talking to people. We're looking at opportunities that are in the space for brands that are for right now. And then, things like Yellowstone that is kind of emerging for us. It was a big hit. We're expanding out. Now we think gaming is a really—
Yellowstone, the game? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have it yet, but it's definitely on our roadmap. But I think if we can incorporate whatever new technology, like we of course also looked at Pokemon as a great example of, you have that thing, and if it hits, it could hit so big, but it has to be right, and it has to be something that is for an active user and a brand that you can have that active experience, whether it's a reality show or— I love the Under the Sea idea. We might take that.
This is sort of an interesting question, I think. I'm going to stretch you guys a little bit. What areas beyond traditional entertainment franchises might make interesting game experiences. And are we going to get Amazon the game, like you get to fill boxes? I'm just sort of curious, as you think about what's out there, are there things that maybe you guys have on your shelf somewhere that might be game opportunities, or that you thought, as you think about this, you're like, we should, too bad we aren't into that space, but that'd be kind of an interesting thing to do. I'm just curious what you guys think. Mike, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I'd say we're always looking at new, unique experiences and how do we combine certain game mechanics with a certain IP, like your example of like Amazon, like there's a shopping game and now you can now shop with Amazon, or a hotel management game and it's Hilton or Marriott or something to that effect, right? So it's always unique things like that. We're trying to think about how do we combine celebrities, brands, experiences with game mechanics that make sense in that kind of universe, right? So that's definitely something we're constantly thinking about.
I'm just curious, because you guys do what you do, Veronica and Rich, in those more traditional spaces. I'm just sort of curious, is there anything you've sort of thought about over the years? Like, oh, that'd be sort of interesting or fun to do. It's not our thing, but you kind of want to do. I'm just sort of curious. Do you have anything else top of your heads that you guys think about?
I mean, from my standpoint, again, gamification of what people are doing. Again, now we've all lived through a year basically now of COVID and people's experiences of how they're traveling the world, how they're connecting with their friends, how your work life or panel life operates. Everything's totally changed, and it opens up the door to add more mechanics into it to make it more interactive and fun kind of through every single element. We're a media company, but as we move into more streaming as well, and as we look at what is the white space that we're not in from a business, influencers have been a newer segment, but a segment that's been important. The Nickelodeon space, we had JoJo Siwa that we have a game with her, and we've done just so much that's more lifestyle driven as well as fashion driven with her. We have another influencer with Nickelodeon, Lele, that is going to be joining kind of our family this year. And we're doing one with MTV, working with a young man named Johnny Orlando, who's kind of an incredible musician, because we see that lifestyle approach is an opportunity and is something that, again, we have different demographics that we go after. We understand why scripted is an important component, and it's going to continue to be an important piece of our world, theatrical, television, or streaming, what have you. But how can we look outside of what we already have and go where consumers are going and appetites are changing in that space?
Given our experience with the Zoom boxes, and it's calling back to an older TV show, I'm just thinking of the Brady Bunch pandemic game version as something that.
We have Brady Bunch. We could go down that road.
It'd have to be in Zoom. The Brady Bunch Zoom pandemic game. Anyway, Richard, any thoughts you might have about unusual or unique, different kinds of game opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us at Hasbro, we sort of, digital gaming is sort of just an extension of our broader brand and entertainment strategy. So there are lots of ways, we give people the opportunity to connect with the brands in a different way than they obviously do in the traditional sort of analog space. So there are, we can take brands like, for example, Monopoly, and we can do, basically, transliteration of the board game, but we can also do versions of Monopoly that, trade on the iconography and make match 3 games and things like that. So for us, it's more about how many different ways can we take our brands and how many different ways can we figure out different, game genres, different platforms, different ways for people to experience them. At the end of the day, they're looking to interact. They're looking to be entertained with it. And
I mean, it's sort of like the casino, the one-armed bandit that's got the Monopoly characters on it. It's like that's a game, right? It's got money involved and all that, but it's
there's lots of different ways that you can sort of take our brands and sort of reimagine them in let's say in the digital space. I mean, we do it in the analog space obviously as well. We have multiple different versions of Monopoly we do each year. So for us, it's I don't know about, corporate brands or Amazon the game or anything like that, but I do know for us, we look at our portfolio and say, sort of like, again, what Veronica's talking about, the different ways that they can express, different ways fans want to interact with the Star Trek brand. We look at different ways people want to interact with, the Transformers brand. So, it could be a combat city builder game. It could be a fighting game, all of that. So
Transformers, you can go in a lot of directions, obviously, and already have with Michael Bay and all the rest. So that's interesting.
there's lots of great storytelling that you can do across these well-known entertainment brands.
Okay. And again, looking forward, because this is South by Southwest and it's all about technology and music and film and the future and the cool present, whenever we get to have a cool present again. Phones are getting pretty honking powerful. You could run probably 20 space shuttles off the computing power sitting in the average iPhone. Now, most, certainly flagship models of most phones are 5G enabled with extraordinary screens, bigger screens, lots of other capabilities. I'm curious, we talked a little bit about AR, which is certainly enabled by a lot of that stuff, but are there new kinds of gaming experiences that you guys are already in that the newer phones, the newer networks will enable? Where are things going? Not going to AR and VR, but just with the new technologies, where are things going? Mike, want to tee it up?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of experience in this since I used to be a wireless engineer back in the day. But 5G ultra wideband brings the capability to do gigabit level kind of connections on your mobile device. So now you can play real-time multiplayer matches with very low ping, to be able to do these first-person shooters or real-time kind of raids and battles and things that.
I mean, you can actually compete on in a Fortnite or whatever. You can actually compete and not just get smoked by the guy. Who's
you can be on your phone playing somebody on a console or a PC, whereas in the past, like, it was a real disadvantage to be on a device like that. So I think as these technologies roll out, and they've got a ways to go. They're marketing a lot of the kind of the marketing term of 5G to people, but it's not true 5G. So as the real kind of 5G ultra wideband gets deployed kind of nationwide and worldwide for that matter, we will see a lot of these experiences come to life, and it's something we're keeping a very close eye on and trying to think about how we can build future games with Veronica and Rich that kind of take advantage of those kind of technologies for sure.
Oh, cool. So Rich, so a low ping multiplayer Yahtzee. So like, bam, there's not a single bit of delay. I mean, 2 milliseconds of delay, tops. What's that mean for your Yahtzee experience?
It probably mean more people playing more dice rolls in Yahtzee.
So they're playing more people, right? They're playing 500 people instead of just 5 or something, right?
Yeah, same with games like Scrabble. No, I agree with Mike. I think as the technology gets, it gets more robust and gets more ubiquitous, right? Because that's what's important, especially.
Right. It's the network as much as anything, right?
Yeah, it's got to be mass market, right? If it only appeals to a small niche, for a lot of our brands are really mass market, like everybody knows them and stuff like that. But as technology grows, you can provide, better, more immersive experiences, more real-time experiences, no more waiting for, something to happen or things like that. So, I think it's very exciting. And if you think about the things that, we've talked about today and in Hasbro's case, with our game brands, how we can make them more real-time, or our entertainment brands, how we can make them more immersive and do more storytelling. All that's going to be really exciting. It's going to allow us to make more entertaining games, more things that people really want to immerse themselves in.
Great. Great. Veronica, and you, I'll give you the last word here because we have to wrap this puppy up and send it off to Austin.
I think, again, just to echo what Rich said, and we're going to be working closely with all of our partners in the space and figure out what new opportunities this can offer. I mean, there's nothing better as someone that's been working on Star Trek for 10 years that the world's getting closer and closer to an actual Star Trek.
Right.
And how do we make sure that we're...
What's the little hand thing? The little hand walk, that's not a walkie-talkie.
Exactly.
That the phone's already there, right? It's basically...
Yeah, it's already there. But I think the better we can make the experience, and again, coming from a content-driven company, the blurring of what's a big screen to a TV screen to your mobile screen, and the fact that content is being consumed in all of these different ways. And all the research that says kids can't really tell one screen apart from another. I mean, I've had my own kids that now touch photo albums and don't understand why it doesn't move and do things with it. But the more that we can embrace all the technology has to offer to create that even further builds that games are an extension of the universes that we're creating from a content standpoint, benefits our fans, benefits our business, and drives all new opportunities for all of us.
And you can certainly smear all the cool videos that are coming from your 5,426 new Star Trek series coming out. Take all that video, the 4 million hours that are being produced as we speak, and work that all into the games. So it'll be a fully immersive experience. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. And thank you guys. Real quickly, how can people reach you? I am on Twitter at David Bloom, on LinkedIn at David L. Bloom. Veronica, where can you be found? How can people reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Veronica Hart at Viacom CBS. I'm pretty easy to find. Would love to talk more about opportunities in the space. And again, I just want to thank Mike and the whole team at Scopely for just the incredible partnership that we've had. And we know that there's so much to come.
Great. Rich, how can they, what's the next move in trying to connect with you?
Probably the easiest way is richard.cleveland@hasbro.com. That's probably the easiest way to find me. Yeah, David, this has been a lot of fun. Chatting with Veronica and Mike as well. And yeah, Scopely, appreciate Scopely putting this together and giving us all the opportunity to have this conversation today.
Cool. And Scopely Mike.
Yeah, for me, probably just Mike at Scopely.com is the best way to reach, or LinkedIn. But yeah, it's been fantastic, David. Thanks for moderating, and great connecting with you, Veronica and Rich, and love working with both of you. And we built some amazing products, and let's keep doing it.
And I can't wait for our Star Trek Scrabble Scopely game that we're going to.
There we go.
Here we go.
It's like, isn't that like matter and antimatter? I'm just wondering. But anyway, hopefully the universe won't end when we do that, but it'll be fun. So you can only have Scrabble words from Star Trek, and Klingon counts.
And Klingon
language counts. That's like Romulans, no. Klingons, yes. So that'll be the rule. All right, guys. Thank you so much.